feel like I am cursed. I'm having an identity crisis. And I think a lot of people relate to this. And I'm actually just finished writing an article for Monday's newsletter that centers on the curse of the exceptional worker. Because I was an exceptional worker, and it's really good to be an exceptional worker until it works against you. And it continually works against me. And I'm kind of sick of it, but I don't know how to actually, I do know how to get out of it because I let people out of it. I help people get out of it. But let me explain this to you. It first starts probably with the story of King Midas. I'm not sure you know the story of King Midas, but I'm going to tell you. So you'll get it pretty quickly. You see, way back when, he once did a solid for a buddy of the god Dionysus. So Dionysus said, in exchange, I'll grant you a wish. King Midas, being the greedy guy he was, who wanted wealth and power, said, I want everything I touch to turn to gold. And poof, that's what happened. So he touched a tree, turned to gold, stone, turned to gold, everything he touched turned to gold. It was great. He got wealth, he got power. Yay, right? Then he tried to eat. The food turned to gold. He tried to drink. The wine turned to gold. He reached to his daughter and she turned to gold. And suddenly, the gift he had turned into a curse and life kind of sucked. So he went back to Dionysus and said, I need to get out of this. Dionysus said, hey, go take a, oops, ouch, go take a bath in the river and that will wash you out of your curse. And so he did. No longer did everything he touched turn to gold. And the result was, ironically, he learned to let go of his greed and actually pay attention to others. He actually got more wealth and more power by letting go of trying to turn everything into gold. And this is the curse of the exceptional worker, right? So, you know, these people, you might be one of them. I know I'm that guy of the one who always excels when they're doing work, right? They work seem to work harder, they seem to get more done, they're most productive, they do things really well, people are impressed by what they do. They're exceptional at what they do. And naturally, they get more work because if you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? So they grow in stature and power at the company, or at least stature, and then they get a leadership role. So I got my first leadership role when I was 27 because I was working so hard and so effectively. I was doing the job of three people. I knew that if I left the company, they'd have to hire three people to replace me. So I became a leader. And my whole identity was around being exceptional. So I continued to be that exceptional worker as a leader. And that's the problem. You see, what happens when you're an exceptional worker who turns into a leader is you're the person who corrects people's emails. You rework their PowerPoints. You tell them answers instead of asking them questions. Every decision has to come to you. And so you're usually the person that says, you know what? I probably should delegate more. I probably should trust other people more. And maybe you even try to do that sometimes and it works for a little bit, but then you go back to your regular ways because it's not about behavior. It's about your identity. Your identity is being the person who excels, the person who is exceptional. That's who my identity was. And for a part of me, it still is. Like, I want to control things so closely, I choke them until they don't work at all. Not people. Haven't killed anybody yet. Yet. And this is the curse of the exceptional worker, just like King Midas, right? Like King Midas was an exceptional person because everything he did touched turned to gold. And then he realized that became a curse. And in order to actually be more productive, be wealthier, happier, more powerful, he had to let go of that identity that everything I do turns to gold, everything I touch turns to gold. Entrepreneurs and solopreneurs will eventually run into this problem. Almost everyone will. And it's the stage I am at with my business right now. You see, because when you start a company or you start your business, whatever you want to call it as a solopreneur, you do everything because that's the way it is, right? You know your goal best, you know you best, you know what you're doing best. And if it's working, it'll continue to build. And suddenly you find yourself doing everything and you can't do it alone. And so maybe you try to hire somebody else. Maybe you bring in a VA or whatever, but your identity is stuck with being the exceptional person where everything turns to gold. And so maybe you don't let them write your emails. Maybe you think they can't adhere to your voice or keep your voice. Like everything has to be perfect. And so inevitably, the person you hire doesn't work out because you are too controlling over what you do. Your identity is still there of trying to be the exceptional person. And in order to change it, it's not about changing your behavior, it's about understanding and accepting your identity. Now, that's the stage I'm going through. By the way, if anybody else if this resonates with you at all, let me know in the chat. And because I'm going through this, I'm also going to be putting on a series of workshops around pattern recognition. So understanding the patterns in your life that are holding you back. And I guarantee that there are some patterns there. The question is, how much are they holding you back? Right? So, how do you change the pattern? Now, that's a darn good question, but I'm not going to get into it yet. What I'm going to get into is how I am trying to move from the exceptional worker to an effective leader, from trying to make myself look good to making other people look good. So I've hired a couple people. I have an operations person. I've got a tactical person who handles the tasks in the day to day. And what I've been realizing for the past couple months that I've been working with them is I've been treating them both like they're task people. Why? Because I've got the identity that only I can do it best. So if I tell them what to do, I'm in control of it. Well, over the holiday, where I was happened to be sitting by the poolside in Cabo, yay, fun. I realized I got to let that go. Instead of treating them like task people, I need to let go of my control and treat my people working with me as if they're partners, right? They have different skill sets. They are partners of mine. I pretend we're in the same office and I'm transparent in things like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help with this. Listen, I'm not a good operations person. People think I'm a good operations person. I just play a good operations person on TV. If a project is on a scale, it goes from 1 through 10, where 1 is the idea and 10 is execution. I'm really, really good at 1 through 3 and 7 through 10, maybe 8 through 10. I really suck at 4 through 7. And I'm kind of embarrassed by this, but since it's just me talking here, nobody will know. Um, I don't get how people think of operations in such simple terms. I get frustrated by my inability to think, okay, here I am at number 3. I need to get to number 10. What do I do? I get stuck in the what do I do? And so I got out of my identity of control and hired an operations person. And what she's really good at is the 4 through 8, 4 through 7 of taking my ideas and creating operations around it. And it's really hard as somebody who is used to being an exceptional worker to let go. I see this all the time with new leaders and new leaders I coach. They worked so hard to be great at their jobs that they got promoted, and then they felt like something was wrong. They get frustrated because their people have no accountability. They're not getting stuff on time. They wonder why their staff isn't happy. They don't know why people don't have the urgency to get stuff done. They're not inspired. They're not motivated, and they don't know why. And so they think, well, if I only were a more inspiring person, if I only could say the right things. I hear that all the time. I'm not the Steve Jobs inspiring person. Well, you don't have to be like Steve Jobs to inspire. And by the way, he was a jerk, a brilliant jerk, but a jerk nonetheless. You, the accountability problem is not your people's problem. Like all these problems that are had by the new leader who was an exceptional worker and then became a leader are because that leader can't let go of the patterns that made them successful before. And those patterns that made them successful before no longer work as a leader, right? When you're a worker, you are working hard to get your tasks done. You are out to look good and help the company grow. When you're a leader, you want to help other people grow for the benefit of the company. And listen, this reminds me of something else. Come up close. Let me tell you. There are four things that are critical for every single company, every single company's existence. Four things. Not just four things for existence, but let me finish my sentence. Stop interrupting me. There are four things that are critical for every company that companies don't teach their employees how to do. And it blows my mind. Like, if these four things are critical for the success of the company, why don't they teach employees how to do them? Here's what they are. Number one is interviewing, right? A company is as good as its people, or its AI, but its AI is as good as its people too. So let's just stick with a company is as good as its people. In order to get good people, you need to know how to interview. And most every company, most every person feels like they the good interview is the one where there's a good conversation. And they will hire the person because, hey, we had a great conversation. And as it turns out, my great aunt is friends with his third uncle's second ex-wife. So we're connected. It's going to be great working together. That is not a reason to hire somebody. And that's one of the big problems in companies is interviewing is critical. They don't teach people how to interview. By the way, I do. Second, the side point, I'm not going to get into that now. So, again, three other things that companies don't teach people that are critical to their growth. Number two, finance. They don't teach people the basics of finance. Can you read a balance sheet? Can you read a P&L? Do you know how to manage a P&L? It doesn't matter your role. These are basic things that you should know when you're working for a company. In fact, I would argue, and I think I'm arguing right now, though nobody is commenting on it, that financial literacy should be taught in school, in high school, forget college. You should learn financial literacy in high school, and doesn't take long. Like, I could teach somebody financial literacy in a 45-minute conversation, the basics of it. So, interviewing, companies don't teach you. Financial literacy, they don't teach you. Number three is leadership. They don't teach you how to be a leader. So that's why we get people who are exceptional workers that get into leadership positions and wonder why the hell it's not working. It's why we have toxic leaders, people who are yelling and wondering why people aren't inspired. It is a huge problem up there, and I don't understand why companies aren't teaching people how to be a leader, how to interview, and financial literacy, right? Because no matter what you do, no matter what role you're in, I don't care if you are the receptionist or the CEO, those things matter, period. Anyway, let's get back to identity. So I work with a lot of people who have just become leaders, and the issues are mostly the same. You also see the issues, by the way, with founders, entrepreneurs of growth companies. So once you get to 30 people and above, things change because no longer is it about you doing the work. It's about you empowering others. And empowering others is hard for a lot of people. In fact, it's really hard. Learning how to empower others is actually easy. And once you start doing it, you will uh, stick with it a lot. I'll give you the hint. It's whenever somebody comes to you with a question, you don't give them an answer. You always start with questions. In fact, everybody who worked for me, at least at my last company, knows that whenever they came to me to ask my advice or get some feedback or ask a question, the first thing out of my mouth is always the same. It's, what do you think we should do? And listen, if they don't have an idea, meaning if they hadn't thought about it, I tell them to go think about it and come back. If they thought about it and they don't know an answer, that's a different thing. Then we'll work it out together. But even if the office is on fire, I'm still going to ask, what do you think we should do? And they better come up with something quickly or we're all going to die. So this is the difference between having people be compliant and teaching them how to think and be a leader. Your job as a leader, for those leaders out there listening to me, is to turn other people into leaders. And how you do that is you teach them critical thinking. You you do that by asking them questions and making them come up with the answers, even if they're wrong. You also do it by letting them make mistakes and letting them fail to a certain extent within reason. I had this client um, recently, last year, and he was a VP at a nine-figure company, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 200 million plus company. So they were doing well. He had a bunch of people working for him, and he was elevated just got a promotion in his role to lead more people in the department. And he was frustrated because, as he said, his people sucked. They don't know how to think. Whenever they were in a meeting, they didn't know what they should do from that meeting. They never talked with the clients. They never asked questions to the client. And when the meeting was over, he had to tell them everything they needed to do. And I said, it's not a problem with your people. It's a problem with you. Here's my question to you, I said to him. Do you ask them what they think they need to do? And he said, no. And I said, try that. And he said, well, when I do that, they don't come up with anything. Okay, here's the thing. I am not surprised that your people are acting that way because when you're in a meeting with them, you are asking all the questions, you're up with the client, you are leading the meeting with the client. And when the meeting's over, you are telling all your people what they should do. So they don't need to think. You're telling them by your behavior that they're not supposed to think. They're just supposed to be compliant. And in fact, they actually don't need to show up to the meetings because you're going to tell them what to do anyway and what happened. So, no, they're not bad people. You, my friend, are controlling and need to let go of your identity of everything being perfect. So, I instructed him to tell his team that after a meeting, they need to figure out what their next steps are and then come back to him with the next steps. That changed everything. Right? All of a sudden, he realized, oh, in a couple meetings, they're actually now thinking and coming back with what their next steps are. And maybe they're not right the entire time, but instead of telling people what to do, he helped expand and challenge them on how they can do more. And that simple thing changes the dynamic a lot. It turns unhappy employees to happy employees. Um, Companies don't teach important skills like interviewing, finance, and leadership for two reasons. They were never taught, and they hoard the information because it gives them power over others. First, thank you for that feedback. Um, I agree, and I respectfully, I don't know. So, uh, in the uh, yes, people were never taught of these things: leadership, finance, interviewing. So they don't know how to tell people how to be better. Now, companies need to start doing that. So they need to learn what the best practices are. And oh, Nick, what's up? Thank you for the comment. Always good comments, Nick. The So once leaders know, like leaders need to get their own education and learn how to be a good leader. Listen, I started my first company when I was in my late 20s. And I knew nothing of what I was doing. It was a little bit of a shit show in retrospect. Now, fortunately, I was able to grow the company as much as I could with me being in control of everything. And fortunately, we got acquired before everything fell apart. But that's the thing. Everything would have fallen apart because I didn't know how to lead. I had worked at other companies before. I was an exceptional worker at those other companies. Nobody taught me how to lead. And incidentally, let me turn off my texts. Nobody taught me how to interview either. So the people that I hired at the company I started, I got lucky and some of them were good, but also I kept people around just because they did tasks. They didn't even do them that well, but I didn't know what it was like. I had never learned these skill sets that are incredibly important for every company. Now, as I grew well, wait, let me get back. I ended up selling that company to a big public conglomerate, and after the sale, you'd think I'd be happy. I wasn't. I was depressed because I felt like I failed. I had a vision, I didn't achieve that vision. Yeah, everything went really well in the end. When you look at it, when I look back on it, when you look at it on paper, everybody else's perception of it was it went really well. But I had an identity for myself of who I wanted to be, and it didn't achieve that there. And this is one of the big problems with new leaders is the leader they want to be does not mesh with the actual leader identity they have, right? And going back to that exceptional leader, if the identity they have is everything I touch turns to gold, that is not what the good leader is going to be. Because you need to be the great leader, you need to teach other people to be the exceptional workers and to be exceptional leaders. So, going back to Nick, your comments, yes, it is hard for a lot of companies to teach people the important skills because they don't know it themselves. And yes, some leaders hoard the information because it gives them power. And in my opinion, that's bullshit. Uh, Power, going back to the King Midas, Nick, I don't know if you were here for my King Midas conversation, but he actually got more power when he let go of turning everything to gold. That is actually how you get power, by empowering people. And let me go back to when I sold my first company. So I realized after I sold my first company, I was 30 years old and I had absolutely no marketable skill sets. My only skill set was being a CEO, right? I couldn't get a marketing job, I couldn't get a sales job, I couldn't get anything because I just knew enough to keep stuff going, but my only thing that I could actually do was be a CEO, and I probably wasn't well, probably and I wasn't that good at it at that time. Now, the reason that I help leaders now and that I have this information that I've gathered in my brain of what makes a good leader is because I've been a CEO for most of my career. Beyond that, I've been a really crappy one. I've been a really, really bad leader for, let's say, 2/3 of that career. But the good news is that making all those mistakes and doing everything wrong and having the imposter syndrome that made me want to understand how to do things right helped me formulate ways that people can excel. And my ways, the way I think, for those who know me, Nick, Crystal, you may agree with me here. I think a little differently than other people. I try to look at behaviors and patterns that you have and identify them in ways that you probably haven't thought of. Why do I do it that way? Because that's the way I taught myself. Because I was too scared to ask for advice when I was a younger leader. Thank you, Crystal. Uh, I was so invested in being the person that was an exceptional worker where everything I touched turned to gold that I was scared to tell people I didn't know how to lead. For years, I wanted a mentor and I looked for mentors and I never found one. Is that because I didn't find the right person? No, it's because I wasn't ready to be vulnerable and admit that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Excuse my language. I swear sometimes. If you don't like it, mute. I'll beep this out later. Anyway, so I went through years just trying to figure out things myself, figure it out in a vacuum of what's the right way and what's the wrong way. And the only right way I figured out are if I do X and I get a better result than I expected, that's the right way. Let me keep doing that. And if you know me, you know I'm all about asking questions, not answers, right? Like, if you come to me, even if I'm coaching you or in a workshop with your team, I'm not going to give a lot of answers. I sure am going to ask a lot of questions, though. And I learned to do that because of low self esteem, right? I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm eternally curious. Yes, I'm the guy that reads 80 plus books a year. I am curious about everything. Uh, and so, as I was trying to figure out how to be a better leader, I would ask questions out of natural curiosity. And I realized that when I ask questions of people, they feel empowered and they are more likely and more apt to speak more to me, to give me more information, to even work harder when they're my subordinates. And so, after years of doing this, just to save my ass and try to make myself not look like a complete idiot, I realized that asking questions is the key to empowering and getting out of the pattern of feeling like you have to be the one to do everything, getting out of the pattern of the exceptional worker moving into the leadership role and trying to maintain that mindset of the exceptional worker. It just doesn't work. You have to understand why you're doing it and let go of that identity. I was just on a call, actually, recorded a podcast with um, Natasha Walstra. If you don't know her, follow her on the LinkedIn, follow her on Substack. She is a wonderful person, brilliant insights about personal branding and selling on LinkedIn. Uh, I know a lot of people at Substack don't like LinkedIn. I think it's an incredibly important resource for the world uh, in terms of if you're going to get a job in the future. But that's a whole different Substack Live. So I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, so she and I were talking about the identity of needing to be in control, right? Both of our businesses are at the same level. We both love what we do. We love helping people succeed. My joy in my life is taking all the mistakes I made, all the learnings from all those mistakes, and teaching people how to not be me. My goal in life is to teach lots of people how to avoid all the mistakes I spent years doing, and hopefully I can teach you them how to avoid them all pretty quickly. So, anyway, she and I were talking about the stage of our businesses right now where it's grown so much, both of our businesses, that we can't keep in control of everything. Now, I have a couple people working for me. I've got an operations person, I've got a task person, and they are helping me tremendously grow this business, but it still is a mind fuck with my identity, right? You don't get rid of your identity so quickly, but you understand it, you know when it's working against you, and you can work and you can make decisions because of it. I talk to people, a lot of the leaders I talk to, I work with a lot of female leaders at Fortune 100s, 500s. Um, Turns out they're female, not designed that way. I work with a lot of founders, founder-led companies, high growth companies, and there is a lot of imposter syndrome out there. Uh, in fact, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they said that everybody who is an exceptional worker, when they get to leadership roles, at some point, they're all going to feel imposter syndrome. They're all going to feel like they don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it or how to lead. I work with those types of people, right? And there are a lot of them out there. And my feeling and my belief is, listen, I'm not going to fix you. If you feel like you have imposter syndrome, you may never get rid of that. That's okay. The challenge isn't, how can I get rid of this? The challenge is, how can I understand the patterns in my life? How can I accept those patterns in my life? How can I understand how they're working against me so that when it happens, I can change what I'm doing? And let me give you an example. And by the way, I am putting on a workshop in February. I don't know the exact date yet, of helping people identify the patterns in their life that are holding you back. And I have a wait list up, which I put in the chat there. Feel free to join the wait list, and I'll let you know when I've announced the date. It's going to be limited to about 10 or 15 people. Um, there are more on the wait list now. It's not first come, first serve. It's going to be random. So sign up there, and we can identify the patterns that are working against you. Where was I? I forgot where I was in identifying the patterns. Um, oh yeah, my example. So I if you're a paid subscriber to my newsletter, you will have learned yesterday or saw yesterday, you would have gotten an email with the new video series. So there's a Wednesday video series I now send out. Every Wednesday, my paid subscribers get a new leadership video from me. And when that email went out yesterday, I saw it and I realized the spacing was off in the text that was there. And so I asked uh, my operations person to make sure she fixes the spacing. I told her how to do that. The fonts were all messed up. Told her how to fix the fonts, and then they got it fixed. And then asked me if I wanted to look at it and approve it. And my first reaction was to say yes. I want to look at the fonts and I want to look at the spacing. Why? Because my identity is to make sure that everything is perfect. I still want to be King Midas where everything I touch turns to gold. But you know what? Spacing doesn't fucking matter. And neither does the font. And I'm guessing nobody in my paid subscriber base even noticed it besides me. So I recognize by me wanting to look at that stuff that I was going back to my identity as controlling, as uh, imposter syndroming, and even little things like that. gotta let go, right? And that's really hard for people to do that. Crystal, you said not me. I forgot what I said for you to respond to that, but let me know. Um, by the way, is there anybody else? I keep hitting this thing next to me and it's really messing with my knuckles. Um, is there anybody else that identifies themselves as used to be a exceptional, a high performing worker? Oh, thank you, Crystal, for not noticing the spacing. It's again, it's me, my shit, right? We all have shit that we got to deal with. And if you know me, you've heard me say this time and time again. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So when I talk with uh, new clients, people I'm coaching, one-on-one stuff, um, I usually ask about family life or friends or kids, or we talk about things like that because the way they act with other people is the way they're going to act at work all of the time. And the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So, my imposter syndrome, my controlling, my desire to be the Midas, everything I touch is gold, doesn't just happen at work, it happens at home too. And that is what we call your identity, right? So, Margaret, you are an exceptional worker too. Welcome to the team of an exceptional workers who turn into leaders and wonder what the fuck they're doing. All right. Listen, I jumped on here because uh this was on my mind and I decided to talk and see where it went and it went all over the place. Maybe next time I'll actually have bullet points that I want to talk about. If there's Was this okay? Did you like this? Should I do this again sometime when I have topics to discuss? And if you have any leadership related topics or problems that you're having or people that you're having challenges with at work, let me know. Reach out to me. You get me at uh, leadership at thebestleadershipcompany.com. In fact, just go to my Substack and you can find me there. Ping me on my Substack. And we can talk in the future about toxic people. I can give you my feeling of why open door policies are complete bullshit. That's a good one. And so many different topics we could talk about. Let me know what you want next. And thank you all for listening to my rant. I'm really hungry now. I got to get some lunch. See you soon. I appreciate y'all.